and welcome to Rolling with Two. I'm Will, and with me as always is the person who likes to play Yokohama in her pajamas,
Sarah.
And today we're doing a two-player perspective and accessibility for Yokohama. So if you want to check out our review and opinion, check out Rolling with Reviews, Yokohama. Sarah, tell us a bit about this game.
All right. In Yokohama, each player is a merchant in the Meiji period trying to gain fame from a successful business. To do so, they need to travel around the city, building stores, broadening their sales channels, learning a variety of techniques, and responding to trade orders from abroad. There are multiple ways to trigger the end of the game, and whoever has the most victory points at the end wins. All right, Will, so how does the game change for two players?
So for two players, there are going to be a number of map tiles, and the number of map tiles as well as which ones will vary based on player count. And that then determines a different setup of all the map tiles for your game. Now, they will get shuffled around, so from game to game, they'll be in different locations, which will provide new randomness. There is a slight bot. So you have a dummy player who puts a token in the middle spots for the customs house and the church, and has a value that you have to beat for having the most technology. Mm-hmm. So he's essentially a lump that just sits there. He's not an active bot.
Right, you just have to beat him to score points for those areas.
Yes. Other than that, those are the changes for a two-player.
Right. So issues, well, this is going to be kind of one of those flip side things in that you might like it, you might not. And that is the game feels long with two players, especially compared to other player counts. And it's really just going to depend.
Yeah, the game ends by player-driven decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So there are certain aspects and things that you have to look out for. And once those things are reached, that's when the game says, okay, we're going to finish this round, do one more round, the game's over.
Right.
So for two players, it takes a lot longer to reach those thresholds.
Right, because you only have two players moving the game forward.
Yes, so therefore a lot more game in a two-player game.
And even though the area of the game is reduced, you use fewer tiles in a two-player game versus a four-player game. Even with that reduction, we still felt like there was a lot of openness and pretty easy to move around the board without encountering or being blocked by the other player. And again, it's going to depend on the type of player you are as to how you feel about this.
Yeah, one rule that's in there that seems pretty prominent is if you want to move through a map tile that has another person's president, which is their big meeple, you have to pay that person. Right. Two players, well, there's always an option of putting some guys around and taking a different path and just completely ignoring the other president.
Right. But in higher player count games, it's going to be harder to pivot and do something else to avoid that player interaction.
Yeah.
So, and I think you can also place your people down where someone's president is, but then you also have to pay them.
Yes.
So there's two opportunities in which you can, the other presidents do block you from taking that tile, to actually taking that action.
Right. You can't put a president on another person's president.
Right. So again, more players, more opportunity to block you from doing the things you want to do.
Yeah.
So it's really going to depend on whether you prefer it to be non-confrontational or whether you prefer the higher confrontational aspect. And
I will say those are two different player groups.
Yeah, they are.
Because you absolutely like it at the two-player game and don't like it at the four-player game. And we have a friend who's probably really only going to like it at the four-player game and hate it at the two-player game.
Right. So this we can't advise you as to whether this is going to be a good or bad thing because it's going to depend.
Yeah. So just note that it feels very solo player-ish in a two-player game without a lot of blocking, and it will take time.
Right. Now, because of these two things, the good thing that we have figured out is that, well, this gives you more room and time to explore the game mechanisms. Because I have to say, from our four-player experience, there were things I wanted to do that I never got to do. Partially because of all the high blocking and partially because the game ended faster.
Yeah.
So we think that's a really good part of, if you can get through the state of a 2-player experience, you'll get to experience more.
Yeah, because this game has technology involved in it, there is a lot of depth when it comes to playing with the mechanisms and seeing what's actual possible. You really can only see that in a 2-player game.
Yeah.
In a 4-player game, you're lucky if you get 1 or 2 of those tiles, so you're just skimming the top of what it has to offer.
And there's a lot of different ways that you can go about making points, and in a higher player count, you may not be able to go do them all, which, granted is fine. You can't do everything in the game, even at the 2-player count, but you're more likely to be able to explore all the aspects, at least a little bit.
Yeah.
In a 2-player game, but in a 4-player game, you're really not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
All right, I think that does cover the 2-player experience. So on to accessibility. And some of the challenges is, well, this is a heavier game. So the rules are just heavier, so it's going to be more to learn. I mean, it's a, what do you think, medium, kind of heavy?
Yeah,
it depends.
It's medium. It doesn't quite hit heavy.
That's true.
It's on the heavier side of medium, though.
Right. So this just may not be cognitively good for some people.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes from a spatial component that's involved, which I know a lot of times you have problems with.
Yes.
This one, you're not so bad.
Right. So unlike some other games, and I'll just say for those who know Istanbul, in Istanbul, you're moving things around very much in an adjacent, and you're leaving things. It's very kind of complicated that way. Here, to move around, you need to have one of your little markers on a tile to move into that space, but you're not restricted on, you can only move 2 spaces, or you can only, move 1 space. Is if you can make a line of your pieces from one tile to another tile, you can do it, and you can move there. You may have to pay somebody along the way if their president is there.
Yeah.
But there's, it just feels like a more open spatial planning.
Yeah, because there are 2 classifications of people. Your assistants, the small little characters, cubes in the retail-based game, little meeples in the deluxe version.
Right.
And then you have your big piece, which is your president. Your president is the one that actually does the actions, but they need help moving around, and your assistants are the path.
Right.
And then once it lands on a map tile, then you count the president plus all the little meeples there, plus any buildings there, and that's how much power you come at a map tile.
Right, and that then determines the level of the action that you can do.
Yeah, and once you do that, all the little meeples go back to your hand.
Right.
But
that's also important. That's part of the spatial planning, is you can't just leave all your people around. You'll need some in your hand to place them down in each new turn, so that you can continue to do new things.
Right.
So, but it still might be challenging for some people, but like for me, because I do have spatial planning challenges, this one is not the biggest challenge for me, so hopefully it won't be for other people.
Right.
So like if you did have problems with Istanbul, you might not have problems with this one. At least for me, I did. I can't play Istanbul, but I can play this one.
Yeah.
All right. Colorblind accessibility. I mean, they went with the standard blue, red, yellow, green. Hopefully one of those colors works for you, and you won't get them confused with others' pieces.
Yeah, and sometimes those colors do blend in with some of the map tiles.
Yeah, and that is one of the challenging things, is the color spectrum of the game. I still think it looks really nice, but yeah, some of the pieces can really blend in, especially if you're using the retail version. We have the deluxe, but the retail with the cubes, and I think it's just because the cubes are smaller, they really blend in, and I have a hard time finding them. But we have the deluxe version, so when we're playing our copy, it's easier to see the larger meeples. They're still small. They're not like a normal size meeple, but they're bigger than cubes.
Right.
I think that's all the challenges. So what it does right, as I just talked about, the deluxe components of shaped resources, and then the meeples instead of cubes, really helps eliminate a lot of the issues we had with visual accessibility.
Yes.
And then lastly, all the icons are unique. Graphic design is okay. This is a more dated game. This is the older version, but it's serviceable.
Right.
And you should not get any of the icons mixed up. Learning them may take a little bit, but not too bad.
Oh, we should go back and say, because the deluxe version, our resources are shaped.
Yeah.
The base retail version are pictures on
square. Yeah, cardboard square chits with the pictures.
Yes.
So still the good news there, if you have the retail, the pictures are still distinct, but if you have more severe vision issues like Will, those cardboard pieces, you won't be able to feel the difference.
Right. Now, keep in mind, this is a Tasty Minstrel game, which aren't being made anymore.
Right.
Now, in 2024, Synapse Games is planning to release Yokohama again, and they do have plans for basically upgraded bits.
Yeah, but it's separate.
Yeah,
so they're going to have a retail version of the game, and as of this point, we don't have anything but the cover image, so we don't know what it's going to look like. But they did say that they're going to have upgraded bits, and I think there was a picture of that on their website or social media or something that did show the shaped resources, so that would be a good thing to get if that is something you need.
Yeah, and that could even work if, say, you get a retail version of Tasty Minstrel and then later buy the upgraded components for Synapse.
Yeah, because
hopefully that should be compatible.
I mean, they're not going to change the resources. So
or the game.
Yeah, I mean...
Mechanically.
Yeah, mechanically. So, hopefully.
Yeah.
Time will tell.
Yes.
All right, conclusion.
For 2 players.
It's only going to be a yes if you're okay with a longer game and less player interaction. Otherwise, you might not enjoy it.
Yes, prepare yourself for a more solo-esque experience. Yeah, the other person can thwart your plans, but planning out one extra contingency isn't so hard.
Right.
So also, in that case, the cognitive load is a little less.
That's true. Cognitively, it is easier to only play with one other player because you only have to make backup plans for one other player instead of 3 other players.
Yeah, so I'd say for 2 players, it's a solid midweight game. For more players, it's a heavier midweight.
True, because you also have fewer tiles, you have less to move around in. So yeah, it's going to be potentially a lighter experience than a 4-player game.
All right, accessibility.
Mostly, yes. Again, this is a heavier or mid-weight heavier game. So cognitively, you've got to watch out for the spatial aspects and just learning the game because there's a lot of different ways that you can go about things. But I think for the most part, this addition and everything they did, graphic design, icons, deluxe components, I definitely think it's pretty accessible.
Yes, with deluxe components.
Yes, with the deluxe.
Whether or not that's very available to you is another question, so I do recommend tricking this game out to raise the accessibility.
Right.
I think for the most part, because of how open all the information is.
Oh yeah, it is all open info.
There's nothing stopping you from playing, even like in my case where I have severe vision issues. I can always ask, well, what's that? And like, oh, she tells me, I continue on with my play.
Yep.
All right. Sarah.
Yes.
What's the name of your company that you are the president of?
I don't know.
That's a very good name. And, and why would you ever roll with just one when you can be rolling with 2? And remember, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out to us on the various social media platforms at
Rolling with 2. That's TWO. We are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And on YouTube, please like and subscribe.
And if you have time, check out the other content Nanaman has found for you, because remember, he's rolling with you.